A shot on Elo. Good! The Bulls win! They win it!
James catches, puts up a three. Won't go. Rebound Bosh. Back out to Allen. His three-pointer. Bang! Tie game with 5 seconds remaining.
Iguodala to Curry. Back to Iguodala. Up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James! LeBron James with the rejection.
Portland have 3 timeouts left. The Lakers have 2. Bryant to shot.
A chance to send the Thunder home. Lillard, long range three.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to this week's edition of the 48 Minutes Basketball Network. Happy holidays, as we are on that week now. Had to bring in a friend of mine who is a big Knicks fan because the Knicks are rolling right now. My good friend, Mr. Mo Egger. And Mo, I had to make sure I looked at the schedule right this time. Last time we had you on to talk the Knicks, we cut the show early so you could go watch them play the Nuggets. This is a couple seasons ago. And I think they actually lost by like 25. So I had to make sure
they
were
got
off
housed.
tonight.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for doing that. Thank you. Well, and thank you for getting me during a winning streak, because this has been the stretch they're in right now, like, is maybe the 4th best stretch of basketball the Knicks have played in 20 plus years. So these are high times.
Yeah, I was just looking at Sam Amico's page to see, because I guess Tibbs was like typical Tibbs, where he's like, whatever, this win streak doesn't matter. Literally used those exact words to say, like, this game doesn't matter, tomorrow doesn't matter. It's like, I remember that from the Chicago days. And then Rick Carlisle, I guess, was like, actually, they're probably one of the best teams in the league right now. And then there was a pretty cool stat in there that said they've given up the least amount of points in the league since December 4th.
Yeah, they've really locked in defensively. They've played the way you would expect a Tom Thibodeau team to play on the defensive end. Julius Randle, to me, has been the key to all that, because we know what he can do on the offensive end. We know what he can do on the offensive end when he's fully engaged. But last season, and I didn't watch every single game, but last year I saw a guy who just mailed things in defensively. And now that they don't have the abject liability that he was last season, they've been markedly better. But then you add to it the fact that they've decided to finally play Deuce McBride. There's a really cool piece in The Athletic about how Deuce McBride, who obviously played at West Virginia, and Quentin Grimes at Houston have these arguments over which program, was the better defensive program. Well, Deuce has been tremendous on the defensive end, a great disruptor since taking Derrick Rose's minutes. And Quentin Grimes, I'll be honest with you, I watched Quentin Grimes. I watch Houston play a lot because they remind me of the late 90s Bearcats. I didn't think Quentin Grimes was a regular rotation NBA guy. And now what he's doing on both ends of the floor, but specifically on defense, it's been something. They've put on the bench the guys who weren't playing defense, and they've increased the minutes for guys who have to play defense in this league to stick. And I think the result of that, and Julius Randle Julius is never going to be a great defensive player, but he can't be a liability. Last year he was a liability. This year, not so much. And I think the winning streak is a direct result of those things.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's really interesting, and you can probably tell me better than most, obviously, it seems like the way that they kind of do their team, and you mentioned, you don't play defense, you don't play, which is nice. But also kind of at times kind of seems like they kind of plug and play like a college team, where it's like, all right, well, tonight we're going to look at Emmanuel quickly to play about 25 minutes, Isaiah Hartenstein about 28, and Jericho Sims is going to play tonight because we need him here. And then like the next night, it'll be like, okay, so Quentin Grimes getting a bump up in minutes. Derrick Rose is going to play about 10. It just kind of feel like it's like, depending the matchup, is how he boosts his rotation through the weeks.
There's something really old school about him, both in terms of, if you don't play defense, you're flat out not going to play. He's put Evan Fournier on the bench. He's put, rather famously, Cam Reddish on the bench. He's put Derrick Rose on the bench. He has no issue doing that. If you don't play defense, you're not going to play. It shows you, I think, to a degree, maybe the level of juice that Tibbs has. But, yeah, you're right. I mean, there are certain times where Jericho Sims is a good example. You'll look at a box score and you're like, wow, he played 22 minutes.
Yeah.
And then the next night, 3. There's a little bit of an inconsistency, but this team isn't good enough to not do that, right? They're not, and they're not experienced enough to not do that. I think, you use the term plug and play, and I think it's appropriate, right? And again, Jericho Sims is a primary example. There are certain opponents for whom you want him on the floor, and God knows there are certain opponents for whom you don't want him on the floor.
Yeah.
And I think it's cool to watch the distribution of minutes sort of come and go with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit, obviously, about the win streak. Winners of 7 straight. During that time frame, the average point differential of 14.4 points per game. 2 of those wins came back to back against my team. I did not appreciate those. Also, I did because hopefully that pushes them to finally blow it up. But what's kind of jumped out to you the most in this win streak? That's really kind of, you said it's one of the best stretches they've played in a long time, and right, obviously it has been. But what's been really the most impressive for you overall?
Well, 3 things stand out to me. RJ Barrett's been a better shooter.
Mhm.
I've given up on the idea that RJ is going to be a consistent all-star caliber player in the NBA, but that doesn't mean he doesn't have value. I sort of feel like his ceiling is now occasional all-star reserve. The first, whatever it was, 20 or so games this season, he was one of the least efficient players in the league. He's been better, and to me, it starts with his shot selection. So I go there. Then there's just been the dominance of Julius Randle. Look, he was never as good of a player as he made us think in 2021. I don't think he's as bad of a player as he was last year. There are still too many possessions. I mean, you saw it at the end of regulation, the first of those 2 games in Chicago, where they come out of a timeout with a chance to win the game. They clear it out for him, and the possession ends in a shot that barely, I don't even think it grazed the rim. There's still some of that, but he's been really aggressive offensively. And he shot the ball well. And, he's also a pretty accomplished passer, but he's also posted a whole bunch of double-doubles where he's really been a more willing rebounder than I thought he was last year. But the biggest thing for me is Jalen Brunson has been as good as advertised. And, I think you saw it in that first Chicago game. Things were sort of going downhill, and there's a sense of calm that he brings the team. They're more organized. They get into their offense more quickly. I mean, is he the most dynamic guy off the bounce? Not, maybe not, but as for all the skepticism that was out there about, first of all, the tampering, and then second of all, like, boy, is he really, is he really the kind of guy that you kind of want to revolve your entire offseason around? He's been terrific, and sometimes measured statistically, but often just measured by watching them run their offense. Because in recent years, and by recent years, I mean, pretty much every season since 1997, the Knicks have never been a really well-run club on the offensive end. And even when they've had high-end point guard play, it's often been because the point guard was looking to score first. And trust me, I'm not opposed to that. But I think with Jalen, it's a guy who's really good at initiating the offense. He can get his if he needs it. But I love point guards that just bring a sense of calm to the team. And he's done that. And I think he did that to a degree in Dallas. But watching the Knicks a hell of a lot more closely, that's really stood out to me. He has been as good as advertised. Is he, a top 20, 25 player? Probably on the fringe of that, I guess. But he's been exactly what they've needed. And, he's played through injury. I think to a degree his effort has rubbed off on players like Julius Randle. He certainly tries to defend. And look, he's got, his own shooting issues, I guess. But just the way he runs the offense has been maybe not a revelation, but it's impressed me more than I thought it would.
He's kind of that guy that you're like, if you didn't know he went to Villanova, you'd be like, he's got a lot of Villanova in him.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so I got to see him play every year for his whole college career. And he's a lot of fun. He's really talented. And like you said, there's that calmness, that patience. Not the greatest defensive player by any means, but he's going to fight on every defensive possession. Yeah, I love Jalen Brunson. I think he was definitely worth everything they brought in.
The Chicago game, the first one, they blow the lead. It goes to overtime. Terrible last possession. The Knicks in my adult life lose that game 10 times out of 10 on the road. Just completely let the lead evaporate. And then they did two things. They locked in on defense. I think the Bulls, correct me if I'm wrong, scored, was it 3 points in overtime? Something like that.
Yeah, not much.
Right. But more than anything, it was just Jalen Brunson on the floor. And yeah, he had 32 maybe in that game or something. You look at the numbers and go, boy, he was really good. But just, all right, we got this. We're good. And, it's not a great Chicago team. But yeah, I mean, there was a sense of, okay, 5 more minutes. We've been the better team. Let's run our stuff. Let's get a few stops, can our free throws, and get the hell out of here. And that's been sorely lacking with this franchise, again, for almost my entire adult life. So he's been everything they said he was in Dallas, and to a degree, even more. It's been and everything. You're right. I mean, having watched him, at Villanova, I mean, there's I think we all sort of have in our mind's eye, like, what does a Villanova player look like at the next level? It's Jalen Brunson.
Yeah, him and Mikal Bridges are like the perfect example. Yeah. So I like those guys. And then Cam Whitmore, when he comes out next year, my goodness, he's unbelievable.
Yes.
Man. So I actually had slides for Brunson and Randall. So you brought them up a little bit. But there's a couple other guys on the team I kind of want to get your thoughts on. And one of them is actually Isaiah Hartenstein. I know a lot of people don't really get excited about backup centers per se, but he's been awesome. And it's like he's just now been awesome. Like, he was really good for the Clippers last year. He had a half season he played for the Cavs, where I'm shocked the Cavs let him get out the door. Again, I understand they got Evan Mobley now. He's a good basketball player, I guess. He's pretty solid. But Hartenstein has been tremendous for them, kind of like when Mitchell Robinson needs a breather. Sometimes that, you can see them playing on the court together because of that defense. I've really, really been impressed with him.
Thing I like most in role players, and I apply this more to college, I guess, than the NBA, because in college you still have a lot of guys who think they're better than they are. I like guys who don't do things they can't do. I like guys who, you'll look at a box score and it'll say Hartenstein 16 minutes, 6 points, 6 rebounds, maybe a block, and you go, didn't even notice he was on the floor for 16 minutes. Didn't blow any defensive assignments, stuff like that. And that sounds stupid, but bad teams have bad benches. Bad teams have awful role players. And so when the Knicks acquired him this offseason, amid all the back and forth about Donovan Mitchell and exactly what their draft strategy was, and then, the Jalen Brunson thing, very quietly they bring in a guy. And, my take was, bad teams have bad role players. A bad team just signed a good role player. And, people kind of snicker at that, but bad teams have stars, right? I mean, maybe the Knicks didn't have a star. Bad teams have stars. They don't have depth. They don't have that second wave of guys. They rarely have quality bigs that can grab rebounds. And, it's funny. I mean, last year in the run with the Clippers, he was a dramatically better shooter than he was. I think he shot 67, 68%. He's dramatically lower than that, although still well over 50%. And you really haven't even noticed. And he fits right in with what, they want him to do. And you're right. I mean, Mitchell Robinson is the subject of a lot of, viral highlights that people make a big deal about. I'm going to guess there aren't many Isaiah Hartenstein highlights out there on Twitter, but if you watch the team play, there's a sense of reliability he brings to the floor. And it was a sneaky good pickup in the middle of what was an offseason that was dominated by, talk of a lot of other things.
Yeah, you mentioned the Donovan Mitchell thing, and the package that was obviously rumored was a pretty decent sized package. I got to ask, after playing 2 straight games against Chicago, do you think as a Bulls fan we could interest you in that package for DeMar DeRozan to come to town, come to the Garden?
What do we have to give up for him? What do we have to give up for DeMar DeRozan?
Couple picks. I don't know if they have any picks they have left, but
Yeah.
couple picks and maybe Emmanuel quickly. I think the Bulls would be happy with that.
You think you would take that?
Yeah.
It's funny that the Knicks, I mean, for the first time in a very long time, they're sort of set draft capital wise. And I am sort of intrigued how they're going to use it. The real debate now is, and I don't listen to a lot of New York sports talk radio compared to what I used to, mainly because it feels like they never talk about the Knicks.
Yeah.
But I've caught a handful of podcasts where the debate is, okay, what do you do, Randall and Toppin? Do you trade Randall now because he's having an excellent season? And, now this contract that a year ago looked like a terrible deal. Now it looks like it's got some value to it. Do you trade Obi Toppin? Can you trade Obi Toppin, a player who is still smoothing out the rough edges in his game and is also hurt right now? I agree, and I was reluctant to do this. I agree with the suggestion that it just makes no sense to have both those guys on the team together.
Yeah.
Right. Julius Randle is 28 years old. We're not talking about like a 30, I think maybe because he looks like he's older. And there are folks who think he's older than he is. He's in his prime, but Obi's about to turn 25. This isn't a 21-year-old kid anymore. So,
right.
If you trade Randle, well, what do you get back? And how much does that torpedo your chances of, I don't know, winning a playoff series, which has happened once in 20 plus years?
Yeah.
If you trade Toppin, I mean, it's a guy who less than 3 years ago was a lottery pick and who at the end of last season, when they were playing for nothing, was terrific and athletically still has a ton of just raw talent. And I think there's still a really good NBA player there, but he's coming up for an extension. Like that dynamic to me, and maybe the way they play in the coming weeks is going to, dramatically shape what they do. But it feels untenable to have Julius and Obi. And it kills me to say that because as a UD grad, I love Obi Toppin, right? Then there's also like with Randall, it always feels like they're they lose 5 out of 6 games away from his attitude sort of going in the toilet, and then, he torpedoes his value. So I think that is a really fascinating dynamic. What do they do? Because, I mean, even like folks who, when they drafted Obi, were like, they'll make it work with both guys. I mean, I don't think that's going to happen. So what they choose to do, if they choose to do anything, is going to be interesting. But yeah, I mean, they're sort of in a good place from a draft capital standpoint. And I mean, we both know they have the 6th seed right now, even if they're not championship contenders. That fan base is starving for that team to matter.
Yeah.
I'm starving for that team to matter in the spring. And so, is there a move that can dramatically increase their chances of at least being relevant? I don't know. They're still so early in the season that as much as you want to get caught up in a 7-game winning streak, there have been these bursts before in the regular season that we kind of cling to, and then the other shoe drops. And the thing is, they've got to play better at home too. They've been so good on the road, and now they're coming home for a bunch. They've got to be better at MSG, and it's been kind of a weird dynamic too. They've played great on the road, and at times they've been pretty lackluster at home. I just gave you like 7 answers to one question.
I love it, man. That's why I love talking pods with you. I think like every show I've ever had, I've been like, I gotta have my one at least once. So it works out. I'll tell you, maybe get your thoughts on this as a Knicks fan. I kind of think they're a fun potential Kyle Kuzma team. Now, I don't think Kyle Kuzma makes them over the hump by any means, but
right.
A guy who can play the 3, 4, and small ball 5. He can stretch the floor. He can hit threes. He's already told Washington, like, don't bother. I'm not signing back with you guys. I think like they've just lost the last 10 games. So I think a Kuzma to the Knicks thing could be pretty fun.
It's funny. I'm not gonna mention who it was because I'll get it wrong. I read a Knicks blog this morning, or maybe it was yesterday. The days sort of run together sometimes, but it was about this exact topic. It was about the fit and what it would take. And I agree with you. I mean, first of all, they could use a stretch big. It's a trade that I think you could build pretty easily. There's a lot of different pieces the Knicks could dangle. Obi Toppin might end up having to be in that mix, but
yeah.
So he's an unrestricted free agent this summer. If you're Washington, you don't want to lose him for nothing. But also tell you there's going to be, I guess, a hell of a market for him.
Yeah, there will be.
There are some deals I'm sure the Knicks would love Washington to take off their hands, but I would be okay with Kyle Kuzma in orange and blue. Absolutely.
We finally got Josh in here to hang out with us. He had to work today. So Josh, we were just talking about the idea of Kyle Kuzma going to the Knicks. What are your thoughts?
Oh, I'm jumping right in, huh?
Yeah, you come in. We're 20 minutes into this. You got to hop. You got to be ready.
Yeah. So I was already a fan of. I felt like Kuzma could have been a decent piece of the core for the Lakers to begin with. I've seen some improvement with him over at Washington. He seems like he wants to be the guy to kind of take the reins to be that lead guy. I mean, obviously under Bradley Beal, and he's talking about how he feels that he can be, the guy inside of an offense. He wants the ball to go through him. So I say, why not?
Yeah, I like it. I think that him, RJ, Randall, and Brunson at least make a series really fun. And Mitchell, obviously. I think, you go with those guys. But what's the kind of, you mentioned earlier in the show, Cam Reddish has kind of famously been set out. He's been linked to the Lakers in a few different trades. Are Knicks fans kind of just ready to move on from him? What's kind of his situation?
I know I am.
I figured you were.
He was terrific in the season opener, and he's been awful since. And, just sort of a weird player, weird fit. It's at times hard to articulate any one thing he does exceptionally well. But when he was getting normal rotation minutes, at least from what I watched, he just wasn't a fit at all defensively. And, we talked about that at the top, right, wrong, or indifferent. For Thibs, if you don't play defense, you're not going to get minutes. And not only is his defense bad, his defensive effort was at times comically bad. And so then you have to make up for that by being, and they have a lot of guys like him who are, sort of have a somewhat similar offensive skill set. So he doesn't separate himself offensively. Again, I mean, despite their recent success, he's a non-rotational player on a very okay team that I would say is probably still a good bet to not make the playoffs, right? Or at least just play in the play-in, right? I mean, I hope I'm wrong about that, but he's a non-rotational guy entering what just should be the prime of his career, and he's not getting major minutes for a 6 seed that just now has had to go on this massive surge to get above 500. Not a lot of value there, I'm guessing. It would be if they moved him the second time he's been dealt with in a year. It's just, I guess to a degree limits the market as well. But yeah, from my standpoint, and I would imagine most Knicks fans would agree, I'm ready to end I was on board with the Cam Reddish experiment when it started, but I'm ready to move on from the Cam Reddish experiment.
He just feels like one of those guys where it's like, yeah, he's really talented, and it's like, yeah, that's great, but like, what does he bring? Like, does he work hard? Does he, does he pick up defensive assignments? I feel like I would love Reddish as a role player on my team, like as just a shooter, strictly shooter, spot up shooter, come off screens, have a dribble handoff, sign me up. But yeah, like you said, like no defensive effort. Doesn't seem like he really likes basketball at times. So it is kind of like really frustrating. And
well, even like they benched him, and there was a story in one of the New York papers about how he kind of just accepted his benching. Like, really?
Yeah.
Like, didn't piss him off, didn't anger him, didn't compel him to, put extra time in. I read the piece, and I think the intention of the writer was to make it seem like, yeah, Cam's a team guy and he's not going to cause waves. And I'm like, you could be pissed about being benched without causing waves. And he just was sort of like, oh yeah, whatever Tibbs wants. And it's like, you're entering what should be the prime of your NBA career. Like, and this team is dying for somebody now. Obviously they've played well since they shortened the rotation, but they're dying for somebody who's supposed to be able to do what you're supposed to be able to do. And you're just going to shrug your shoulders and go, eh. And that was the gist of the story. And I don't like that. No. Like, I want the guy who's like, man, F this. I don't know when I'm going to get my opportunity, but when I do, I'm going to play my way back into the rotation. I'm going to stick it to Tibbs. And you know what? As soon as I can get out of here, I will. Instead, it was just like, yeah, I'm benched. Okay, cool. Other guys are taking my minutes. That was, to a degree, disheartening.
Yeah, I agree. I'll tell you said earlier, what would it take to get DeMar DeRozan? I bet you could convince some Bulls fans, not me and Josh by any means, but I bet you if the Knicks like dangled Derrick Rose and been like, look, Derrick Rose for DeMar, there were Bulls fans that would be like, I'm in. Sign me up.
Well,
let's do it.
He got a huge ovation the other night when they put him in the game, and so they seem to still love him. And yeah, they seem to still love him, and Bulls fans should. I mean, the 2011, 2012 season was awesome. And heartbreaking, but yeah, I think Knicks fans would also gladly and somebody who is just I really love Derrick Rose as a player.
Me too.
And have wanted the renaissance to happen, and it just, with the exception of a few fleeting moments here and there, it just hasn't taken. And by all accounts, he has the right attitude about what's happened with his minutes, and he's sort of been cool with helping out Deuce McBride, who's taken the majority of his minutes, but it hasn't worked. And so I would be in favor of anything that would allow him to carve out another chapter in his NBA career.
How cool has it been for you to have a Deuce on your team, a local Cincinnati kid playing for your favorite team? That's gotta be neat.
It was, it was cool. My producer Taryn Bland, I said to him this summer, I'm like, why don't you get Deuce on with us? And he came on, and he was awesome. And
he's awesome.
I think he thought, he was just going to come on because he's from Cincinnati and I'm in Cincinnati. And then I think about 4 or 5 minutes into the interview, he's like, wait a minute, this guy's like a Knicks fan. He's like streams G League games and I think, and so he sort of lit up, right? And it was right before he left for summer league. And it was also weird because, during the summer, as everybody was talking about the Knicks making the trade with Utah, Deuce's name came up. And so there was the awkwardness of that, but yeah, it's cool. I've long lobbied for him to get his chance. And on the defensive end, he's been disruptive. And I think a lot of us thought that that's what he could be. And he has been. And so, yeah, it's been, if we could ever get Obi healthy, and then you have the Dayton guy and the Cincinnati guy in the floor together, dude, that'd be, all we would have to do then is go sign Gary Clark.
I was waiting to see how long it'd be before Gary Clark came up with this show.
So,
I think we broke Mo a little bit here. I think we got it back. Mo, can you hear us okay?
And now,
all right, I think we got you back. Do I have you?
Yes, Josh? I hear you. I see your mouth moving.
Sorry about that. Internet radio. This is why you guys get to do the big time.
All good. Yeah.
So since you guys,
we had a guy on the radio with us from yeah.
No, I just had a question with the Knicks schedule. They've won 7 in a row, and they have a 4-game homestand, 7 in a row. Then they have a 4-game homestand that runs them into Christmas Day. And in that 4-game homestand, they play Golden State, Toronto, Philadelphia, and then the Bulls again. apparently they're going to play the Bulls every 3 or 4 days here for the rest of the year. And then they go on the road against Dallas. And then in the next out of that, in their next 12, they also play the Raptors again, and they play Phoenix, the Bucks, and the Pacers. So how long do you see them playing in this 7-game win streak? I know they've been playing well, and they started off beating Cleveland, which was a big win. How long do you see them playing into this winning streak until they actually take a loss?
Well, the fact that 8-game winning streaks for the New York Knicks are rare, I'll say tomorrow night against the Golden State Warriors, because this is how my life works. Even in the state of disrepair that the Golden State Warriors are in, look, first of all, we talked about this before. They got to play better at home. They just killed it. Admittedly against teams that aren't great. They did blow out Atlanta at home. They did have that win over the Cavs that you've talked about. Prior to that, they took a couple of pretty lopsided losses at home. I don't know. I'm interested in seeing how they play Philly. The Sixers, obviously on paper have a dramatically better team, but they all well versed in what's happening there. In terms of who's going to win regular season NBA basketball games on an individual basis, I think that could be a little bit wrought with danger. But with their next 4 at home, you got to win at home. Golden State's a mess right now. The Raptors aren't great. Chicago's not very good. The 76ers are very meh. Can you win 3 out of 4 at home before you take the Texas trip to round out the year? I would like to think so. And then, Dallas, it's like playing Knicks West with all the former Knicks on that team. San Antonio's terrible. Houston, no. I mean, they've got a little bit of a chance to. I would stop way short of saying they're going to win all these, whatever it is, the next 7. We're not going to be talking about a 14-game winning streak, but can they win 5 the next 7? Yeah, the way they're playing now, the way they're defending, with what they're getting from Jalen, absolutely. So, I think Philly played us on Christmas last year, if I'm not mistaken, and Tyrese Maxey just carved us up. So, he destroyed us.
Well, I know it's early. I know it's early in the season, but the Knicks are in the 6th spot, and they're one and a half games back from Brooklyn for being number 2 seed. So if they win 3 out of those 4, and let's say somebody slips in between there, obviously they're moving spots really fast. And like I said, I know it's early in the season, but I'm sure that those conference slidings, that matters, towards the end of the season. We see how when teams start sliding places. And is there a team that you feel like with the Knicks that you don't match up with well, that let's say they do make it into the playoffs, that's a team that you do not want to play?
I wouldn't want to play the Boston Celtics. I know that. Which goes.
Well, I'm saying if the Knicks gotten one of those top 4 seeds, like a team on the backside that you wouldn't want to play,
the Brooklyn Nets. For obvious reasons. The star power on that team. Plus, it would just suck to lose a playoff series to them. So, the Brooklyn Nets. I mean, Kevin Durant's still terrifying when you're on the other team, when you're rooting for the other team, and so I don't think they could beat them 4 times. I think it'd be an interesting series. It'd be fun. People on the East Coast would love it. I don't want to have to try to. I mean, look, if you tell me right now they miss the play-in, they avoid the play-in, and they're going to play in the playoffs as a real playoff team, I mean, there's a part of me that would just say, "Yep, sign me the hell up for that." But as fun as Cleveland is, I think the Knicks could beat them in a series. I don't think they could beat a fully engaged, locked-in Brooklyn squad. There's just, despite injury, despite age, whatever social media goofiness there is, I don't trust this team to beat KD 4 times out of 7.
Yeah, that's scary. Well, hey man, if you want to hang out a little bit more, we're going to talk about the rest of the league. You're more than welcome. We've got to go do something, by all means, so we understand.
I I have to I have to tend to my daughter, so I'll just put it that way.
I understand.
But
I will be joining you.
I will at yes, that's right. Yes. All right.
Yeah.
You'll
6
you'll
weeks.
know what oh man. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
It's coming quick, man.
Actually, it might be 5 weeks. My wife said that we're measuring a week early right now. So, a little nervous.
Yeah. But no, some other time. I appreciate it's always fun to talk about the Knicks. I never get a chance to, so I appreciate you asking me.
Yeah, man. Anytime. I love having you on, as you know. You're one of my favorite people to hang out with at the basketball games this season. So I will see you Wednesday at the Shoe.
For that big Detroit Mercy tilt. Yeah.
Antoine Davis on the chase to be the all-time leading scorer in NCAA history. So
that's right. Hey, yes, that's right. Okay. Well, there's a reason to care. And it's ugly Christmas sweater night, I think, right?
Oh, you're right. You're right. Does that count for media?
It can. It can. It never does for me because I always forget, but yeah, it can.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, Mo, thanks for everything. I love talking the Knicks with you.
Anytime, man.
Thanks. On, man.
All right, guys. Thank you.
See you, Mo.
See you guys.
See you later, Mo.
Yep. Take care.
All right. Well, that was Mo Egger of locally of ESPN 1530 hanging out with us, talking a little Knicks. So it's always cool to get the local guy that loves the NBA when you live where we live. So I love hanging out with Mo. It's always a lot of fun. But Josh,
kind of wish he would have had a little bit more time. I was thinking about, I wanted to bring up, some of those 90s Knicks teams, and like just how we, being Bulls fans, I mean, those battles that we used to have with them and what the Knicks have to do to get back to that like upper echelon of, NBA royalty. I mean, they did make the finals the one year, when they had Patrick Ewing and all those boys, but
twice.
No, that is right. Twice.
Yeah.
Lost to Houston, lost to
San Antonio. Yeah.
Yep. San Antonio. Got it. Dude, that was later on.
Yeah, it was 99.
So yeah, man. Let's get it going.
All right, we only got a couple more segments here, but this is one I've been just waiting to talk about. I've just been so excited about. And Josh, the Orlando Magic are finally building a core to be excited about. They are winners of 6 straight. They just beat Boston twice in a row in the Garden. Paolo Banchero, as you know, is just super special offensive talent. Just easy buckets for him. He's just such a prolific scorer. Has so much offensive awareness for a rookie. It's honestly really impressive. And then you look at Markelle Fultz. I think we can go ahead and take out for Markelle Fultz. He's always got this bust label. But look, he's been in the league 6 years, and he's playing. He may not have lived up to expectations of what he was as the number 1 overall pick. But I don't call him a bust because he's still playing, and he's still contributing. So Markelle Fultz, Cole Anthony's been in and out. Wendell Carter's been hurt for a while, and they're winning without him. And a lot of people can say Wendell's probably their best player. Maybe Paolo's now taking that, and of course, I got to mention my guy. I got to mention Bull and what he's doing is playing 7-2 point, taking the ball up and doing his thing. Obviously, I'm not saying that this team's going to go on a run and get in the play-in by any means. I think they're in the Wembanyama sweepstakes, but player development looks good. What they're putting together looks like a lot of fun, a lot of young rosters. I kind of described it, Josh, as they're like the minor league baseball organization. It's like, this guy does this right. This guy does this right. This guy does this right. Let's throw them out there and see if they can actually play. And it's working to an extent.
So let's just list the guys that get some clock, right? That have, ample minutes. So, Banchero, he was the number 1 pick in the draft. Now, first things first, I will tell everybody with the Orlando Magic, every time that they've had the number 1 pick in the draft, they have been something special during that time, right? So they got Shaq, Dwight Howard, and now they got
Chris Webber, technically.
And Chris Webber, technically, yeah. So you have Banchero, he's 20 years old. You have Franz Wagner, he's 21 years old. You have Carter Jr., 23 years old. Jalen Suggs is 21 years old. Cole Anthony is 22 years old. Bo, 23 years old. Markelle Fultz is only 24 years old. Wagner is 25 years old. RJ Hampton, 21 years old. If you want to look down the list and go, Kiki and Mo Bamba, 24 years old. And then you have their two veterans. Gary Harris is only 28. And then you got Terrence Ross, who's that 31. They do got a couple guys on the roster. Schofield from Tennessee doesn't get a lot of PT, but he's in there. Kevin Harris. But I'm like, this team is young. They are so young. And we still don't even know how some of these guys are going to develop yet. RJ Hampton came pretty much straight out of high school. You got Mo Bamba, he was a year at Texas. And you mentioned Markelle Fultz, who has been just injured, right? But I feel like when he's healthy, like he gives you a lot on the floor. Like when he's had stretches where he can get back into a rhythm, like you kind of see
Did we lose Josh? All right, I think we lost Josh. He's freezing up. So I think what he was saying is when Markelle Fultz is on the floor, he's giving teams a lot, and he's been really, really talented for them. I've always been a Fultz believer. I didn't know, I said I would take it with the first overall pick. I thought with what he put on tape at Washington, thought it made a lot of sense. It just didn't work out, and I think he was a guy who really needed a change of scenery. And you saw what happened there. It just kind of, I know he hasn't played a ton of basketball games, but Orlando's been a good spot for him. And like Josh said, he's battled a lot of injuries, and he's been able to make a lot of plays. He's been really impressive there. So I'm excited to see what they can do. They're the team that I think I want to get Wembanyama the most. And why I say that is, like I said, they're a team that kind of goes like, this guy can shoot. This guy can play defense. This guy can attack the rim. This guy will block shots. This guy gets steals. This guy's a really good distributor. And I think that's what really makes him exciting. And so if you look at like a minor league system, you get guys like, I made the joke. Why I say they're like a minor league baseball team is they'll go get guys like this guy throws 100. This guy hits 55 bombs. And they just kind of mesh it all together and see what happens and comes out of it. So, Josh, go ahead and pick up what you were saying there. You broke up right when you said when Markelle Fultz gets past being injured, he brings what to the team?
Oh, I said you see glimpses of why Philly wanted him at the number 1 pick. Like he shows these little flashes of why that was a thing. And me, I'm always for the guy. Like I just want him to stay healthy. I want to see him healthy.
Me too.
I want to see how he fits in with the rest of that team. But like you said, this team, if they're all about development, and let's say that they do end up in that lottery and they get Victor, like Lord help me, come 2 years from now. I mean, you could see the Orlando Magic being like kind of that Golden State Warrior like dynasty type team that we could see playing well into the next 10 years of playing for NBA championships.
Dude, the Cavs just won again. They're 15-2 at home.
Yeah, they were beating up on the Jazz pretty bad.
Yeah, they won 122-99. And Spida had 23. And Garland's tremendous, isn't he? Jetty Osmond was scoring tonight with 22.
I never thought as a Bulls fan that I would ever cheer for Cleveland. I know that I'm not super big on a LeBron fan, but now that they got my boy Mitchell there, me being a big Louisville fan, and like I think everybody's now starting to see like it wasn't a fluke in Utah. Like he's really good, and he's kind of catapulted this team into like that next upper echelon of being like top 4. Sorry. top four of one of those teams that can make some noise in the East. I still don't even think they've played their.
Yeah, I agree. So Wednesday is a big game for them. They host Milwaukee at home. So that's good at the Q. Man, that's gonna be a rocking atmosphere. Two of the top three teams in the East right now, according to the seeding. So that's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm excited. I'll be make sure I'm tuned into that one. You all right over there, buddy?
Yeah, my note. I'm sneezing. Sorry.
Yeah, you're good.
I mean, we
You're
said
good.
at the beginning of the year that we thought Cleveland would be we could probably sneak into that 4 or 5 spot, and they're holding steady at the 3 seed right now. A little bit over a quarter of the way through the season. I mean, this could be something that could be potentially for us to start looking at down the road. Like Boston starts a little bit, or Milwaukee goes on a slide, and next thing we know, Cleveland like sneaks up and gets this, a tier. They stay in that 3 seed. Like that's a little crazy.
Yeah, it is, man. I agree. So yeah, that's a team that like you better like make sure they don't get a top 4 seed. Make sure they don't get home court advantage because they don't lose at home. So
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what we're seeing. They do not lose at home.
Yeah. All right, man. So I want to do this exercise to end the show tonight. And then we'll talk a little bit about the Christmas Day games and get our thoughts on those. But I didn't make a slide on that. That's on me. But let's kind of look at the panic meter on some teams here. So we're going to give these teams here a scale of 1 to 10 at our panic level for them. This is just kind of talk about like how things are going right now. They aren't very fun. So we'll start at the bottom. The Washington Wizards, losers of 10 straight. We just talked with Mo about Kyle Kuzma potentially being a New York Knick, and the Wizards just holding on to guys like Beal. Obviously, they go and get Porzingis. I think that was a good move for them. He's played very well, but I think this is a 10, right? You can't lose 10 in a row in the NBA and expect to kind of come out of this. They're outside of the play-in now, so they don't have seeding in their favor. I'm a 10. I thought I really liked the Wizards going into this season. I thought they had a lot to be excited about. I was definitely wrong.
Yeah, they how they lost that game to the Lakers Sunday or last night, I think that made me kind of be a little bit out on them. Like they were in total control of that game. They fought back, got the lead, and then the craziness that happened at the end of that game with LeBron getting that loose ball and throwing that dime, I was like, yeah, it's just not in it for him. And you're right. I know Beal said he came back to the Wizards because he said nobody that was a winner wanted to take him in. I couldn't see a team making a playoff run not wanting somebody like a Bradley Beal or services of a Kyle Kuzma, or I'm sure there's certain teams that even Porzingis would fit on that he would be able to help a lot. Yeah. I think it's time to go ahead and just blow that up and start from scratch.
Yeah, I agree. The Toronto Raptors, losers of 5 straight. Scotty Barnes has really kind of taken a step back, honestly, if you look at what he's been doing this year. Fred VanVleet has just not found his shooting form. He's just not who he was the year they won the title. And it's shocking because I thought he'd just forever be a bucket getter. But Pascal Siakam has obviously played really well this year. I think I'm not a 10 on the Raptors. I'm probably more like a 6 because they still have really good players, but things are not looking good for them right now.
Here's why I'm not out on the Raptors yet. I know they're 2-8 in their last 10. They're 5 in a row that they've lost. But how many times have we said, hey, we're out on the Raptors, and then they make this run and they get themselves back into playoff contention? You got to think, man, they've had tons of injuries already. I mean, Siakam missed, I don't know, what he missed, 2 weeks, 3 weeks of the season already?
Yeah.
And you know as well as I do, man, you need your core to be able to play together for a while, just to gel, to be able to figure it out. So I'm not out on them yet. They got a decent little stretch coming up though, where they go Knicks, Cavs, Clippers, Grizzlies, and Suns. After that stretch, I might be out on them.
Yeah, that's scary.
I might be. That's a scary stretch. So
It's nuts. Yeah.
Oh, and then they go Pacers, Bucks, Knicks, Trailblazers.
Whew.
So they got a nice little stretch of some competitive basketball coming up.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
If they come out of that stretch 500 or something like that, then I'm like, okay, I'm sold.
Yeah,
that they can get back in it. But like I said, they're always a team that fights. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. All right. Minnesota Timberwolves are 15-15 right now. They are 10th in the West, so they're technically still in the play-in. But Karl Anthony Towns is out 4 to 6 weeks. Jordan McLaughlin's been out. Taurean Prince has been out. Rudy Gobert's out tonight. Kyle Anderson's been out fairly often. And if you look at what those guys that they traded to Utah are doing, they're playing pretty well. I don't know if I'm not going to say I didn't like the Rudy Gobert trade for them, but I definitely thought they'd be better. And like you said, it could just be a situation where they got to play more together to figure this out. But I'm not very confident in that organization to be able to put things together. I don't think history is on their side to say that they can. I know last year was awesome, and they do have guys like Anthony Edwards. But I think between these injuries and Cat and Gobert do not look comfortable together on the floor at all. It just looks like it's a weird fit. I'm going to say I'm probably about a 7 on my panic level for them. I don't see a situation where they can win a playoff series.
I was not a fan of the trade to begin with. You got this young talent in Anthony Edwards, and you got a big that can stretch the floor in Cat, and then you bring somebody in that can't stretch the floor and he has to play in the paint, up against the rim. It didn't feel right to me to begin with, and I don't think that there's nothing they can do about it to make it work from here moving forward. That was just, I felt like they already had a team that was in place, and that was not the right piece that they needed.
Yeah, I agree, man. I agree. I think if I'm them, I'm shopping D'Lo. He's an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year. I think Cat is probably tradable, honestly.
Ooh, Cat, huh?
Yeah, I do. I think that. But who knows, man? I just don't see a situation where they make some noise by any means. All right, 2 more. The Chicago Bulls, 11-18, 4 straight losses, including last night against a shorthanded Minnesota team, giving up 150 points. It's over. I can't see any. It's over. Get what you can for DeMar at this point. If you can throw Vooch into a trade, make it happen. I don't see any reason to believe in Lonzo Ball is going to play basketball in the near future, maybe ever, because I guess most recently he said that he didn't have any setbacks when he ran, but he did feel pain. And so I don't know, man. I don't feel good about the situation. Your pick is top 4 protected. So if you pick in the top 4 in this draft coming up, you have your draft pick. There's no reason to keep this together. I'm a 10. A lot of that's obviously being a Bulls fan, but end it. Just end it.
I didn't want to say this out loud, but I was kind of out when I found out Lonzo wasn't playing. And I know that sounds weird about one guy, but we all saw what we had on the floor when we had DeMar, Levine, Vooch, and Lonzo out there with Caruso. Boy, they were so much fun to watch. And
yeah, they were.
We thought that we had a team that, over the next few years, you put a couple more pieces around, and we thought we were going to see some ascending of Pat Williams and Ayo, who both are, I feel are decent, ball players, but they're Patrick Williams has been a little bit of a disappointment up to this point. And then I think AO is still trying to figure out what his role is. But once I heard Lonzo Ball wasn't coming back, I just knew this team was not in a position to be able to compete, because he's a real floor general. Like, he is a guy that gets out there and he can kind of controls everything that goes on. And we both know LaVine and DeRozan are just not point guards. As much as I love Caruso, he's not really a point guard. Dragic's 36. It's a wrap.
I agree. I just think that, look, I fully commend them for doing what they did last offseason. It was awesome. I was so excited. Getting DeMar and getting Caruso. We already knew they were getting Lonzo. So getting those two was pretty fun. And like you said, when they were on the floor together, it looked like they had something special, but they just haven't been able to be on the floor together. I do think Ayo is a good player. I just don't think he's a point guard. And I think that's what kind of is making, like you said, kind of trying to find his role. I think he's a really good perimeter defender, but he's got to be able to bring more than that. And that's not his fault. That's not his fault at all.
Not his fault.
Andre Drummond should not be your big free agent marquee signing. It should not be for any team. They did bring in they cut Baby Antetokounmpo. Did you see that? They brought in Kerrick Jones.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what that does anything for them, but cool for Jones. All right, last team is the Golden State Warriors, losers the last 5 of their last 7. Curry now out. This is kind of one of those where the foundation might be being tested, because we always thought, the foundation will make sure they're okay. But not only is Curry out, but Andrew Wiggins has been out. He was not going to play the last 2 games of this road trip. Klay Thompson's day-to-day. Kuminga's been day-to-day. These young guys, they've gone and wanting to get, the Wisemans, the Patrick Baldwins, the Jonathan Kumingas, the Moses Moody's, have not really been what they had hoped for. You look at, Draymond Green hasn't necessarily been good. He also punched a teammate in the face this year. And what? Jordan Poole was incredible last night. He was awesome. So, can he kind of take this offensive on his own for however long he's going to while Curry's out? I wouldn't say I'm like pushing the panic button yet. I'm probably like in that orange there, probably like the 4 or 5, because it's the Warriors and they always pull something out and they're just such a smart organization. But the fact that Bob Myers is like apparently like leaking to the press that he's ready for a contract extension during the season before Christmas, not a good sign.
No, and I think really what this comes down to is how injured is Steph Curry. And they're saying he's, so when you get the air quotes, he's going to miss a few weeks. What does that mean? What's the actual injury? Are we talking 3 weeks? Are we talking 6 to 8 weeks? Because I'm like, if it's 6 to 8 weeks, like, yeah, they're done. Like, their season's done. Like, I don't think they can dig out of that hole. If you tell me it's 2 to 3 weeks and you say, hey, guys, I just need you to hold ship, stay at 500. If you can stay at 500 or somewhere around 500 until we get, the band back together, this team can beat anybody on any given night. And that's the one team I wouldn't want to play in a series. They're also a team that doesn't lose at home when they have their full squad. We also know they can't win on the road either. So
yeah. That's true.
So that's really more so for me is how long is Curry actually out?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, you don't ever want that to be the case. Like, the Bulls' last stance was strictly because it was like, they're like, we don't want to pay Phil Jackson. And everyone else was like, well, I'm only playing here if Phil Jackson's the coach. Where this is like, everyone's getting injured. And Draymond just has been not very good this year. So it definitely stinks because they're a joy when everything's clicking. But that's like that thing I sent you guys in the text the other day that, maybe they're just like pulling our leg and maybe they're just getting in the Wembayama sweepstakes and just so they can like put him on that team and just be awesome again for another 10 years.
What's crazy is I know people don't like conspiracy theories or like wild like rumors and stuff like that, but I mean it's plausible. It is plausible that is what they are doing.
Yeah, it is.
Hey,
man.
we know that this run with our core group is coming to an end. What we want to do is we want to see this kind of stretch itself out. So what we're going to do is we're going to get the guys in while we still have that core here and just kind of run with it. It's just going to keep going. So you get Victor, right, who's like an all-time right now is what they're saying. He's like they're comparing him like we haven't drafted anybody in the NBA like him since LeBron James. That just shows you go, what's that, 20 years now it's been
literally
20 years like since we've had a guy that we've been this high on in a draft. I mean, I know we've seen the Zions and all that stuff, but like this is a different type of hype. And then you see the tape and you understand why.
Yeah, absolutely. He's definitely a lot of fun to watch. It'd be fun. I don't really think they might think that way, but who knows? All right, before we get out of here, Christmas Day games. So normally, like you get stoked for these, right? But with all the injuries, it's kind of like a little bit of a bummer. So Philly looks like they'll be without Tyrese Maxey. The Lakers won't have Anthony Davis. Milwaukee, Boston, that should be healthy. The Warriors won't have Steph against the Grizzlies. And then the Suns and the Nuggets, who knows who's going to be hurt by them? Probably Chris Paul again. He is playing tonight against the Lakers, but I feel like I'm always excited for Christmas Day games. It's one of my favorite NBA things every year. But this kind of feels a little more like of a bummer just because of how many guys are injured this year.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you. Bucks, Celtics, Grizzlies, Warriors were the two games that I was definitely looking at. All the smack
no
talk
Desmond Bain,
between
no Steph Curry.
Yeah.
Bummer.
All the smack talk between the Grizzlies and the Warriors. And then we've seen the Bucks and the Celtics last year in the playoffs. And you want to see that rematch. The Lakers without AD. You get Luka and LeBron, but and then Suns and Nuggets. You never know which Nuggets team is going to show up, but you do get Joker versus the Suns players. So, but yeah, those two games that I mentioned first, like those were definitely like the two games that I was like, all right, at 5 o'clock and at 8 o'clock, like I'm glued in. I've opened up presents, taken a nap, got back up, ate some lunch, maybe took another nap. Might miss a little bit of the noon game, see a little bit of the early game, the 2:30 game, but I'm glued at the TV at 5 o'clock, and I'm probably watching the rest of the night.
Yeah. But also the NFL's on Christmas Day a little bit this year too, so that makes it like a little bit of a competition. So it's gonna be interesting. I know the NBA will never beat the NFL in a ratings war by any means. But like
honestly, the only reason that it doesn't, I know people have to understand these guys play 3 and 4 games a week. The NFL is on once a week. It's one Sunday of the month. Yeah. If the NBA only played one game a week and it was on a Sunday or a Saturday, it'd probably be a whole different rating thing. You probably could sell out 50,000 seat arenas to watch, your favorite player play. But unfortunately, it's not set up like that.
Yeah, I agree. Isn't it weird that LeBron's the 2:30 game on Christmas Day? Like, what a world do we live in now?
Right. If you were to think about it, that game's in Dallas, so it's what, an hour behind?
Yeah, so it'd be 1:30 local time. Yeah.
That's a weird start time.
I know. It is weird. I don't know, man. Maybe Kemba's gonna get a Christmas Day special like he had last year at the Knicks, since he just had that crazy game Saturday. I hope so. I'm a big Kemba guy. I think we all know this.
I'll be honest with you. There's no Christmas Day NFL games that I'm like wanting to watch to begin with. Those games are the Packers and the Dolphins, Broncos, Rams, Bucks, Cardinals. I'm cool. Like, give me the NBA. Yeah. I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I agree. Yeah, the Christmas Eve games are kind of fun.
There are some good Christmas Eve games. Obviously, I'm sure everybody around here is going to be watching the Bengals-Patriots game. So, yeah. Eagles-Cowboys.
Yeah, without
So,
Jalen Hurts, my fantasy football team is very upset about this.
yeah, that kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah, I'm pretty upset. I got to make a waiver claim tomorrow for Gardner Minshew. That's not exciting.
No, not at all.
Nope,
Not at all. Maybe he'll miraculously become healthy
Yeah, I hope so.
and
Please.
play this weekend.
Christmas miracle. Playoffs, round 1, and my quarterback.
Man, Tim, now that you've brought up the Christmas Day games for the NBA, like I'm kind of, I don't want to say I'm bummed, but like last year, a couple of those games were fantastic.
Yeah, you remember Kemba going crazy in
Like
the Garden?
I've always, I mean, forward to like sitting with the family and watching these NBA games, while we're eating and stuff like that. And I'm not saying these games can't be great. There's some other guys that can step up, but like you watch because you want to see all the stars playing.
Right. Yeah, it's not gonna be the same this year, but it'll still be entertaining because it's Christmas Day basketball. But hey, before we get any further in this, we're gonna go ahead and wrap up this week's episode. Thanks for Josh for hopping in a little later. Thanks to Mo Egger for giving us some insight on the Knicks right now. That was a lot of fun. We'll be back here next week, and thank you all. Hope you guys have a great Christmas with your family. Great holiday season. I can't believe we're getting towards the end of 2022 already. So please, as always, if you are watching us on YouTube, whether live or on the rewatch later on, please take 2 seconds to subscribe to our channel. If you are listening to us on your podcast choice of app of choice, please give us a 5-star review. And if you want to support the brand and buy some of our sweet gear, go to 48minutesbasketballnetwork.merchmake.com. We're good Christmas gifts, good stocking stuffers. So on behalf of Josh, everyone, Merry Christmas. And we'll talk to you guys next week.